Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Tuesday evening in Germany. It is a lovely morning with hopefully no rain in the United States, in Chicago, in Sammamish. Sammamish. And then near
Can't be that short.
Josh, where the heck do you live? I simply don't know.
I am in the glorious Bay Area of California. Specifically the People's Republic of Berkeley, also known, which is actually, for better or for worse, a well-earned title. But
that's fantastic. Welcome, Josh Greenbaum, our guest today. We are very grateful that you could make it and that we have the opportunity to talk about compelling things, inspiring moments, and a lot of brand new ideas. We got inspiration, such as from one of your articles, which is talking about the death of silos, which you have discussed recently with some others of our friends in the community. And Bay Area is a place I honestly would love to change, such as living in the picturesque, more small town environment of Rossbach vor der Höhe, which is not the hippest area. I prefer Berkeley, and Berkeley is an innovative place. So you are surrounded with a lot of positive spirit and innovation. Josh, please tell us a bit.
Wait a minute.
Hey,
wait a minute. Well, it's not that great. I mean, but anyway, thank you. No, I was going to add, we have positive spirit and innovation, but I just saw an ad yesterday that you can buy in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a property that is a spiritual healing center on top of a vortex. It said on a vortex, and that's apparently yes. That's a premium property with the vortex. We don't have vortexes here in Berkeley, so we're now feeling very, how should we say? We thought we were, innovative and interesting, but Santa Fe has vortexes.
Yeah, I bet you can't even get a drum circle together.
Oh no, we got that one going on right down the street. That we can do. Drum circles, unfortunately, but yes, vortexes no, and CRM is not, doesn't happen here, but we can gaze west into the horizon and see the mighty Salesforce Tower, which is called other things, but we won't say that for polite company. So yes, we are basking in the glow of CRM and innovation, but we're basking in it. The glow doesn't actually emanate from here. Just
and placing it that, so if you have the right binoculars or a telescope, you could see even the former towers from Redwood Shores if you get the right angle.
Yeah, actually, up in the hills, I probably can.
Well,
it depends. We need clear air, though.
Yeah,
it's a little too much pollution. Yeah.
But unfortunately, these are tax refugees which don't want to pay what they owe the state, and they went to Texas, where the happy triggers and bomb bullets are at home.
Are we to start that already? Because there's a large company I just mentioned with a large tower that doesn't pay corporate income taxes anyway.
But but the money they have saved, they give to people in social
Hawaii with large estates.
I'm sorry.
It's probably because they don't have income. That's why they don't pay taxes.
Yeah, right. There's no income. Clearly, you saw the balance sheet. There's no income. We're already down a rat hole. I thought we were going to talk about silos.
No, it's simply that with this provocative entry into the show, we have a fantastic starting point that you tell us a bit about your background, Josh, and knowing you since the Dreamforce 2007, where we met the first time, when that gentleman who has now that tower was, put it politely, very rude towards you.
War stories.
A fantastic one. Probably we share later, but what is your background in the industry, and where have you had so far a lot of fun in giving some of your thoughts into the community, and also writing with a certain Robin Hood mentality for the good ones, the consumers?
Thank you. My background. I've been following enterprise software since the 80s. So speaking of Oracle, I was around when Oracle Financials first showed up, which I would say is probably the most newest, or the first of the newer, more modern ERP systems around. So I've been at this for quite a while. I was based in Europe in the 90s. I ran into this little company called SAP, no one had ever heard of. This thing called R3. Started writing about them. Came back to the States and really have followed enterprise software since in all of its manifestations. And I'll clarify my coverage in the following way. I sort of take the big picture. So I always say, if you want to dig into, the speeds and feeds, very specific feature functionality in a domain like this one, CX, CRM, I would defer to the three of you, honestly, for having a much better, deeper knowledge in the specifics of any particular product. I'm the guy who sort of tries to take the big picture, and from the customer standpoint, any individual solution has to live in an infrastructure. It has to interact with other components, whether that's other applications or technology. And so I'm really looking at all the different things that go into a customer's acquisition of a particular piece of technology. So in the case of CRM or CX, it would, these days, what's happening? What's your model? Are you pure cloud? Is it hybrid? Mostly hybrid. Who do you have to interact with? Excuse me. If you're doing things like configure, price, quote, what's on the ERP side? That's not necessarily going to be anything that's from the vendor on the CX side. So I'm the guy who tries to sort of work out those problems for the customers and for the vendors themselves. They have a lot of problems, and in fact, that's what led to that Death to Silos blog post.
Which basically is one of the problems, right?
It's a big one. Yeah. It's both a symptom and a problem in and of itself simultaneously.
Yeah, certainly not a new one. I've been seeing calls to break down the silos for as long as I've been following the industry, which, granted, is not as long as you've been, but even so, it's always the call to action among software vendors: break down the silos, provide something that gives our customers the 360-degree view of the customer, another phrase I hate. Your Death to All Silos article is going to say what now?
It's impossible.
I know it is. And we could start a whole discussion about that, but that would be rude because we're here to talk about
silos.
Yeah, we're here to talk about silos and how Josh has destroyed them with his article, and none of us now have any work to do ever again. You swine.
I wish. No,
to be honest, I'm really impressed with it because what you did and what the article suggests are the same thing. You attack the problem from every angle, and that's what needs to be done, I think. Shall we get into it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I pointed fingers everywhere, including us.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Like you said, every angle.
Yeah.
We are culpable, but handsome, so we get away with it.
Yeah. And of course, you were saying, that you've been talking about this for years and years, and as we all have, honestly. I mean, I don't think there's anything new and earth-shattering in that article. And on the funny side, thank goodness they've not fixed it, because that's why the four of us all have a job. And if they ever got all that stuff running perfectly, we'd have to go find honest employment somewhere.
No.
No, just in a summary, what is what are three? Take three. The three topmost problems that silos cause, and then now that you destroyed the silos, how to rebuild them without building new silos.
Well, I think the top three. Boy, that reductionism is not my style.
Okay, then make it 5.
No. But no, I think, look, the major problem really is that more and more we as an industry need to provide users with experiences that digital experiences that really mirror the demands of their jobs. We want our employees, our customers, our partners to have these very complex yet very well-designed experiences with technology that really run a process end to end. You want to be able to, look for, buy, track, receive, service, return, all that, all those things that we do in our commercial experiences in a seamless way. And the silos are seams that we have to cut through or that tear out to get from the next thing to the other. And we all see this in simple things like you call a call center, and the moment you're going to start laughing, right? You start seeing the breakdown right away. The information isn't being shared. They don't know who you are. They can't see your service record, even though it's there, because that's the company, and from a customer standpoint, that's very frustrating. From an employee standpoint, that's really frustrating too. And one of the great, things about improving this is you can actually give more employee satisfaction by they can give a better experience by having their own better experience. So I think at the end of the day, maybe there's one thing I can say. One is that we're really failing at providing the experiences that the digital economy can provide. And in failing to do that, we're missing huge opportunities all around. That was
I commented on that one where you made the point in that the employee is frustrated, and when a frustrated employee is talking to customer and cannot manage properly, he will not generate a delight in the customer experience. So my short abbreviation on that, my colleagues do know it, and my friends, happy wife, happy life. Yeah. And if you give an agent 5 monitors and 10 systems to work in to get a customer's inquiry set up and done, where is my package? This is a real moment of truth, how to get people crazy. Yeah. And
works well.
It works perfect. And I have a lot of customers here in Germany which are still in that kind of technology where they live in the 60s and want to drive forward in the 2020s. Man, this is cool. And so I made such a comment also in one of the posts from Blake Morgan, where I from time to time read some stuff. And that was one where I couldn't keep myself in making exact the statement on happy wife and happy life. Because if you do create the right environment for your employees, it's much more likely that they manage to do a job which can help the dedicated customers or the potential customers. From that end, Josh, I made the statement in the introduction, I see you as the good guy who is taking the standpoint, even if it's pulling out the guns and firing at the vendors for being a pain in the neck towards their customers, that you are a bit in the Robin Hood mentality. You are the guy, in my perspective, who cuts the arm, gets some Tabasco on it so that it gets really painful to make it clear to them, guys, you are delivering shit. You are not giving them what they wanted or what their intention was, but you deliver what you have on stock. And in that brilliant article, which I take that one provocation, tell us a bit more about what you observed during the years, that they are still baking brown bread instead of healthy bread, or white bread instead of healthy bread, which the customer would like to see.
Where do I begin? I mean, I think, Ralph, the fundamental problem here is really, you have to ask the question, for whom does the vendor work? What is their job as a vendor? Is their job to make customers successful, or is their job to make investors successful? I'm going to just put it right on the table. And that, unfortunately, particularly here in the United States, particularly with Wall Street and the venture community and private equity breathing down our necks, what we tend to see, unfortunately, is companies that fundamentally are organized around keeping investors happy and not keeping customers happy. So they respond to the quarterly demand. I got to sell more. I've got to make my quota, and to hell with the customer, to hell with shelfware, to hell with the fact that this stuff doesn't get implemented, but you check the box, Wall Street waves at you, pats you on the back, everybody's happy, and the customer's not successful. That to me is that's the crime. And if I'll take the route, if I can be Robin Hood and do something about that, or I think it may be more like I have to be the Incredible Hulk to do this correctly. But Hulk's back.
The customer is the boss of our all environment and of all the vendors, as if he denies to buy or he is no longer willing to pay the bill, they have a dispute. And so at the end of the day, I want to be paid. And from the customer perspective, who is subscribing a software solution, it's getting tricky. And welcome Rich and welcome Zach. And cool that we have a vivid audience with us.
Always good to see people.
Yeah. But now, if you're saying that asking who the vendor is working for, the investor or the customer, question, can the vendor or the customer, the investor or the customer, can the investor be made successful without making the customer successful?
That's what we've been doing for 20 years.
You can do it.
50% success rate on implementations. You tell me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we can. Can modern 21st century capitalism survive if the focus is on the customer and not on the investor? Yeah. I really hope so, because otherwise we're doomed. And I don't think it has to be philosophically, independent. But the public markets, but again, in particular, I'll blame the U.S. I think that DAX and other markets may be a little more forgiving. Really does demand this quarterly cadence that's unbelievable. I mean, you really have to turn in. And particularly, it's interesting because it gets complicated. If you're a legacy company selling in the cloud, now you have sort of this catch-22. You're supposed to be profitable like a cloud company. Profitable like an on-premise company, but grow like a cloud company. The cloud for many years was allowed to grow without profits. Now that's sort of changed. But it is a complication. I mean, the companies that there is something to be said about taking a company private to get away from the show me your results every 3 quarters, or I'm going to throw you in the garbage bin. But that doesn't always work either. I would say we can bring up Zoho as a good example of a company that Go ahead, Marshall. You take it away. I'm doing all the talking.
No. That was me saying.
That's invitation, yeah.
Because if you weren't going to, we were.
We're
kind of fans of Zoho here, and it's especially because they don't have to report to the newspapers every 3 months or to the investors or whatever. And it's also a little bit of a problem because it makes it a little more difficult for the punditocracy, as you call them, us, to really keep track of how they're doing in the industry. We just have to look at their product itself. But it does change the way they approach the market, and I think it's doing good for them, and they're doing well by it.
No, I think it's very interesting. It's tricky though. Look, go ahead, Ralph. I'm sorry.
As we have 2 Indian players, the one came out of the dark from being privately owned and went to the stock exchange, with all the dangers and risks. And the others is like an anti-vampire act. I will never ever go to the stock exchange. This is death to my spirit and to my sense of doing business.
Right.
So stays in the dark, to continue with your words.
Well, probably he is in the middle of the light, and people just don't have taken that perspective that being at the stock exchange, you're under a microscope, and everything what you do is observed very carefully, even when you go for the toilet or if you speak to the wrong woman. Yeah. And this can have an impact if you buy the wrong car and your stock is without nothing seriously dropping down, and parts of your company are no longer valuable. But you haven't changed your attitude, you haven't changed your product value, you haven't changed your customers, but simply somebody who is observing you is writing you to death, to put it in a very rude way. Yeah, this is a danger.
And I don't know if there's a perfect model. I mean, I think for a number of years, Infor also was privately owned and did a very good job.
Yeah.
It was interesting watching Infor because, what Charles Phillips was able to do is build a new cloud suite while basically maintaining this huge legacy customer base, taking a lot of revenue from maintenance. Maintenance is enormously profitable. No one should ever discount the old school, on-premise maintenance revenue. But he was able to sort of build out capabilities without having to report to the street the fact that he wasn't selling any of it, because no one was buying cloud in the initial days, at Infor when he was doing that work. And it was okay. No one cared because they didn't care. His equity partners were fine with it. It does, that's not the ultimate solution either. I think, Zoho is an anomaly insofar as the investors, the owners of that company are not Silicon Valley, West Coast venture capitalists turned private equity vultures who are really there to roll stuff up and make a profit. That model doesn't usually work out that well either. So it's tricky. Back to the original question: is this compatible? I mean, I don't know what would Max Weber say. I mean, we can go back to the economic theory. I think you can. Can you go to heaven and still be a capitalist? Yeah, that was the whole idea. So in a metaphorical way, you should be able to, do good by your customers.
Yeah.
And be a capitalist. I really, really believe that needs to be possible.
Very interesting perspective. Sorry, Thomas.
Getting a little away from the stock market, which is probably and the model of capitalism, which is probably nothing that we solve today.
No.
Given the situation that many companies have, I mean, they have their legacy systems, they build up a hell of a lot of IP within their own companies using their vendors or the software that got provided to them that was implemented by them on their behalf by somebody else or using the help of somebody else. Is there anything that a vendor or a consultant or a company can do to get rid of those silos or build other silos that help serving their customers better?
Yeah, fix the silo problem with more silos. That sounds
well. The basic question is: can you fix silos with other silos, or
build
do you
one
create other
big
silos by
silo
fixing
around
the
them
silos?
all?
One great big silo. Well, interesting enough. So you look at what companies like let's say a ServiceNow or Solaris or a Signavio, which SAP just bought. where you take they're sort of starting, and I think ServiceNow is maybe doing the better job of all of them because they're taking a more comprehensive view. They're taking the position that you've got this stuff already. Let's change the experience, if you will. Let's put workflow in front of it. Let's put process mining in front of it, and instead of trying to really essentially instead of trying to replace the foundation of the house, let's put a new coat of paint on it. Let's add some features to it and change the experience of the house without necessarily redoing all the plumbing and wiring. And I think you can do that to a large extent. And I'm seeing some, there's a lot of, I think this is where, to a certain extent, the world is going to go. You can't upgrade, update, replace all the back-end systems in the world. It won't happen in our lifetime. So to a certain extent, it's impossible to get rid of the silos. They're just there. They're entrenched, deeply entrenched, in bunkers, large bunkers. Bunkers, entrenchment. I'm getting, it's warfare we're talking about. But what you can do is really change the individual experiences. And there is, we've talked about middleware, and we have software that allows you to fix some of this. They're band-aids, but they can be very effective band-aids. The alternative to the band-aid is an open wound. That's a nasty metaphor, but we need, to a certain extent, it's better than nothing, a lot better than nothing, because what we got right now is, the poor customer service agent who has to deal with 5 different logins simultaneously to solve a single customer's problem. That's a mess.
So what you're basically saying is the solution to silos is throwing more software created silos is throwing more software at it.
Yeah. Yes.
It's good for good news for the vendors.
Yes. Well, here's the other thing that has to happen, and I mentioned this in the article. We really have to change the mindset inside the customers as well, and that's a big problem. I've been working on that, and I've been sitting down in the room with customers trying to get them to break their own silos down. That's where we need this simultaneous culture change. We need to really get, and I think I say that. I mean, the vendors created the silos. The silos were then replicated inside the customers, particularly large customers. And so now those buying centers are not just, they're both isolated, but they're also self-isolating. They want to perpetuate what they've got. And they have no, until you change how P&L is structured, incentives are structured internal to these customers, you're not going to fix that problem either, because why would the VP of supply chain give a hoot about what's happening over in the CX side of the house? Well, actually, they really should. Their jobs depend on it, but not their incentives.
Bingo.
And that's the problem.
So we have to change it for them. Oh, go, Ralph.
I have today the delay. So if we go to the CRM court jester and we take the example of that, we have a lot of small little kingdoms in one organization. Nobody wants to lose his reign, his part of the power, and it is what we would call normally the diplomacy which make it happen, that they are bridging gaps which are between these little kingdoms. And this is one of the aspects. If I break open the silo, I have no more frontiers, such as the model in No Frontiers with the Schengen approach, that we can freely move from one part to another within Europe, and we have one currency. On the paper, it's cool. But if you come to a certain stress level, such in a pandemic situation, oh my goodness, what have we forgotten to think about? Yeah? And so if you break open the silos, you create one big data lake or one big CDP, and you forgot to clean it. And this is my typical example for a Güllegrube. something which is not smelling very nicely, a lot of garbage coming together, not properly checked and cleaned. And on that base, they now try to make common, mutual decisions. And this is another challenge I see in the aspect of break down the silos, kill them, but what's coming then? And how is that how is that kept operable so that it's doing a thing such as let the system do the work, but please with clean data?
We haven't scratched the surface on data. The silo data is unbelievable, and organizing it into some customer database, with organizing bad data into into a bigger data lake is just you're just polluting more water. You're not necessarily doing anything any better.
But now you're saying throwing more technology is not the solution to fixing it.
Well, look, I've watched. Yeah, Marshall, go ahead.
I think, well, not in a vacuum, you can't. I think what needs to be done, there has to be pain somewhere. Businesses, the customer companies need to start saying, we're not buying your shit anymore because we can't make money with it. We need this other shit that works for us. So then the vendors have to start designing that and selling it. But how do you start that? Because the customers, all they know is what they've been sold for the past however many years. Like you were saying before, Josh. This is a serious, it's a snake eating itself, and it's beyond me how to fix it. But I think somebody needs to get smacked in the face to make them realize it's not working the way it should.
Yeah. And Richard's comment caters to that basically, so that's why it's in.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just said that Richard's comment caters to what Marshall just said, so
yes.
That's why I keep it in there. So how to deal with it then?
I mean, this is obviously the billion-dollar question. How do you deal with this? And believe me, I spend a lot of my days thinking where, there are different. There's no single solution. I've talked to maverick CIOs, sometimes it's actually the office of the chief information security officer, who can take this global perspective of saying in fact, that's an often interesting place to start. Silos are actually an information security problem. They are they provide too many vulnerability points that need to be dealt with. That's sometimes a way to inside an organization to say, let's fix this up. And fixing, but you have to have leadership. The customer has to have a leader. It's not going to be the CEO. I don't think CEOs get this. CFOs, maybe chief digital officers. I wish this was their mandate. I think you've got to have the customer leading it. And you're absolutely right. It has to be there. It's pain. You're going to have to hurt first. You're going to have to take your medicine. You're going to have to take that shot. But the thing that strikes me, and I've written about this separately, but the culture of mediocrity is something that drives me absolutely nuts. That we've accepted this. It's okay. We as an industry have learned to live with this mess. Marshall, you brought up the failure rate in implementations. I mean, if you're a service provider and you've done 5 implementations in your career, you've had 3 of them were kind of not so good, and of those 3, 2 of them really were bad, and one of them might actually have almost ended up in court if it didn't end up in court, in a lawsuit. I mean, it can be that bad, and that's okay. That has to change dramatically, and I think I think we as the punditocracy have to think, our colleagues, I don't think any of us are guilty of this at all, but we have colleagues who love to put out reports that talk about single products, and this is the, and focus on 3-letter acronyms as opposed to solutions. I think the dominance of those reports and the fact that on the analyst relations side, that's often what an AR team does, is just feed the report mechanism, and those reports are siloed themselves because these big firms are siloed. That has to change. Service providers, same problem as vendors. They have to ask themselves, get up in the morning and say, whose side are we really on? But at the end of the day, if the users don't demand this, they're not going to get it either. And that's maybe the hardest nut of all to crack, is how do you get user organizations to really look at the numbers and say, we're wasting money, time, effort, everything, on dancing to this particular tune. We've got to stop it. I think that's, I would love to finish my career having solved that problem. I'm not sure I can, because it's really big.
Well, they're looking at the numbers now. They're just looking at the wrong ones. The quarterly numbers, the bottom line. This would probably make me fit in very well in Berkeley. I'm one of those people that thinks that if we could get investors to understand that long-term satisfaction is way better for your investment than short-term profits, most of these problems would go away.
That's radical. You're just a radical. Yeah, that's like radical.
I know. I'm out of control. I'm a total rebel.
You need to be careful that you're not a socialist.
Look what happened in the automotive industry, with total quality management and the Toyota production methodology. Toyota, to give them credit, really looked at the long-term value of the customer and decided to make a huge radical change in how things were built, not just to deliver a better product, but to deliver a product that retained its value. Yes. And therefore retained the value of the brand. And in doing so, they changed everything in modern manufacturing, and made a hell of a profit. I mean, if you look at, and I did a study on this, and I've looked a lot at these issues of productivity in general. But if you look at what happened to the automotive industry, particularly in the United States market, that's the one I know best. Germany has its own special case. You and your fast cars and fast autobahn. But they really, I think, put the customer in the driver's seat, to make a bad pun, by saying, here, we're going to sell you something that's going to work. And it's going to work. It's going to run for 100,000 miles on absolute minimum maintenance, and it's going to give you a great driving experience. It's not going to be the most elegant, sexy, beautiful thing. It won't look like, a car made in Germany by engineers who work on every possible detail to the nth degree. It's going to be slightly less of an exciting experience, but it's going to get the job done and get it done every day. And I think we could apply that to the software world and to the whole concept of why, how do you sell software and how do you consume it? It's something for long-term value. It's not something, but that has to be. So you have to sort of change the mindset at the vendor side. This is what we're going to do. And then you have to start educating customers. This is possible. You can actually buy a car that will run 100,000 miles without major maintenance. That itself was a radical idea. It was, and you can look at the numbers. It was radical enough that it took Toyota a while to really dominate the market. We were still in the United States buying Fords, and it didn't matter that the damn thing, would crap out and the parts sucked and it was expensive. We wanted our muscle car. We liked that.
Yeah, we were having parties where people would get together and smash a Toyota because we didn't like the fact that they were doing it better.
Yeah.
Remember those days?
Oh yeah. Blame the victim. Right. So we can change, but change is, I think humans resist change. That's one of the things we do. We like to stick with what we got.
So when we are looking at, well, there are three parties, as you said. So we have the vendors who will change only if the customers demand it. And in between, we have the other pundits, which is the SIs, the implementation partners. So
Right.
you rightfully said that they take their share of the blame as well, because, well, at the end of the day, it's time and material, and the more, well, short-term thinking, the more T&M now, the better for me. So what can be done? What can they do?
Wow.
Or how
They need a real culture transplant. I mean, and it's unfortunate because they the tendency of the last 10 years has been to roll up a lot of the very successful boutique firms into these larger firms, particularly as they've gone into markets like CRM, like HRM, HXM. And unfortunately, the culture transfers, it goes the opposite way. They absorb the new boutique, and the boutique mentality goes away because the boutiques get it, right? It's like, look at the four of us. I mean, could any of us survive if we provided a crap customer experience to our customers? Could we how long would we survive screwing our own customers? How long would we survive? Yeah, right. It'd be over in a minute. Customer service is everything when you're small. When you're big enough that your brand can drag you, but you can drag your brand through the mud and still get the next contract, then you've got a problem. So I would really love to see, now part of what we do, of course, with the big firms is promote the smaller firms and their mentality, and that's why I'm really big on metrics, on having, I mentioned, I think in the blog, my friend Bonnie Tinder's, our organization Raven Intelligence, that's doing these post-implementation surveys. I had a startup, probably not going to make it, that does actually, surveys customers during the process of implementing software to make sure things are going well. You put transparency and accountability together, and you can change a lot. And particularly, I would really love to see a world in which the systems integrators stand up and say, I want to be known for quality. Now and then the vendors. So let's say, and I'm going to pat Mike Etling over at Unit 4 on the back for having this mentality. He's engaged his company directly with Bonnie's company, Raven Intelligence, and essentially forcing all the partners to be part of a review process, and so that they are being measured by customers after an implementation, and that stuff's public. With transparency comes accountability, and that's what's, I think, will keep us all honest. I'd love to see our world accountable too a little bit more, but if we could do that, we could change a lot. The problem is that, and I guarantee it, I've been in the room, you take a global systems integrator and ask them to take a survey, an independent third-party survey, they're going to either look for the exit or look for the window to throw you out of, one of the two or both.
And it's probably not the exit.
And so how do you change that? Go ahead, Val.
It's more or less the perspective that you learn to fly. And I'm afraid on the other end, it's the wrong attitude. And I take your point that it is so important to get new measurements up and ready, not only to measure the quality of an implementation, but the quality of how the system is accepted, used, and let's say inhaled. And not that shit of net promoter score, but a new measurement which gives you an honest perspective how happy is the employee, measuring employee happiness and his experience on the job, and how the system they are utilizing or the platform they are utilizing is measured in giving them a rate of their job to be done measurement and how good it is on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, it's just real. These are big culture changes. When I started my company trying to do this measurement, I was embarrassed to realize that I've been, in the punditocracy for years, and I failed to account for the change management problem. getting people to, I love to say, everyone loves the idea of transparency and accountability until you say, well, it applies to you. As soon as it applies to me, forget it. It applies to Thomas and Ralph and Marshall. Great. You guys go.
I'm wearing black.
But not me. Right. Not me. And that's universal. That's universal. That's not even our world of technology. That's human nature. But that's what needs to happen.
There is a German saying, everybody likes to get the knowledge of conspiracy, but nobody likes the traitor.
You had an interesting thought before that the boutique consultancies are getting it. So now by definition, boutiques don't scale on themselves. Now, following a Ray Wen thought here, how do you think it could work when, or if a bunch of those boutiques bundle up and become big together?
Interesting thought.
This is everybody wants to rule the world.
Let's just look at this. Look at this. The StreamYard thing. Could the four of us do 4 times or more better together or not? I don't know. We all get along really well, but could we really organize ourselves to do that and structure our different business? That's hard. That would take the problem with the small companies is they suffer from overhead problems. It's just too hard to, they're doing, I work with a lot of them. I actually love to, sit down and help these boutique companies in the ecosystem, whether they're implementation partners or software partners, because they're doing real good work. Part of their scalability problem is simply that is a bandwidth problem. They're so lean and mean in general, and so working so hard on keeping the deal flow going that it would be hard for them to structure. So what I would love to see them doing is instead en masse embracing someone like Raven Intel and say, well, we're going to be the ones. We're going to be part of your cadre of boutique firms that are going to bite the bullet and go transparent and go accountable, and we'll take the hit, if we have to. But at the end of the day, I don't think I think at the end of the day it would be great. I don't think you can organize your way out of this. I think it'd be too hard to get these boutiques to do that. I think it'd be. But go ahead. If we could, maybe there's a consortium, more of a, more of a loose organization of, the transparency and accountability organization.
Yeah. So I was thinking of several ways. So one I'm thinking of is good, but the idea in the back of my mind there is, well, the consortium is one word that comes to mind. Cooperative is another one, and the third one, which goes into the big ones, basically is maybe it's an M&A activity as well. Maybe I don't know whether that does work.
I have a joke. I say, Thomas, which is that when I want to end my career, I'm going to write a book entitled Josh's extremely thin book of successful mergers and acquisitions. I don't think that particular world is just messy. But I think the consortium, maybe, you could really organize around the idea that we are going to differentiate. We as a group are going to collectively differentiate on quality and not just on brand. And maybe it's a certificate you put in the corner of your logo. It's, you're a certified B Corp. You check your box for diversity, you check your box for climate, you check your box for transparency and accountability. That may be really interesting.
Yeah, it could be like the new Zenith radios and electronics. The quality goes in before the name goes on.
There you go. And we're part of a quality consortium. I like that.
Quality consortium. Oh, that sounds so buzzword bingo. I love it.
Sounds like a new business model for an external agency that takes care of providing the
ruined it already. It's
trademark 2021 CRM evangelists. We own it. Yes.
We own it. Right. There we go. Yeah, we will be rich. We will dominate the world. Yes.
Yeah, at the end, Pinky in the Rain comes true. Now, but the more important part is seriously taking this forward. Excuse me, is the aspect that Winfried was writing a comment on getting the mid-market platformized or something like that. And you come on.
Winfried Felser, Josh, you probably don't know him. He's a German pundit.
Okay.
We have our
I'm
German smaller Robin Hoods as well.
Of
They are
course you
not
do.
so popular, but they
But that
make
would-
their way.
That would be Wilhelm Tell, wouldn't it?
This is
Tell,
Swiss,
yeah.
but interesting.
Swiss.
I'm afraid that our friends over there, which have the problems if we, for tax thieves, send in the cavalry, that they wouldn't like us knocking at their door. So Wilhelm,
Finish what you were saying. So what about your? So you have your German Robin Hood. What was he saying?
he said that the mid-market organizations, the Deutsche Mittelstand, needs to get organized in the way that they create a platform, platformizing for the mid-market organizations, because the innovative genius is not in the large organizations. It's in the organizations which are growing and have still an open mind.
Was the idea a platform like a technology platform, or more of a platform like a policy platform? I mean, they actually talking about tech. Was he actually talking about a tech?
First, it
infrastructure
is in a corporation, like in co-opetition. The market is big enough for us, so we put together the ideas, such as if you had the big shows and exhibitions, and the competitors sat at one table and said, what do we do for the audience, for the community? And we don't fight over the show. We start fighting after the show. And this is a family meeting like Christmas or a big birthday. Everybody is in peace. And afterwards, it's war again. Yeah.
Right.
For a longer term, to get, for instance, thoughts and thinking together like they had at the start of the pandemic appearance, we versus virus. There was a national-wide 2-day hackathon in getting ideas together out of large enterprises, small one-man shows, mentors and creatives in thinking for solutions to overcome the pandemic challenge from a business organization perspective. And there was a lot of value what came out in a weekend's work out of people which have never met before. This could be a fantastic driver if you see it in a larger economic scale.
I think, the problem, I think it's a great analogy, except because adversity is what can bring us together. The problem is that we've accepted this culture of mediocrity, even in the Mittelstand, even in the, in the small, medium-sized enterprises. It's okay. We're used to this. We don't our software doesn't have to work that well. Our software, implementations can take too long. We, overtime and over budget is normal. I mean, we've normalized it so that we don't see it as a crisis. We see it as standard. And, I think that I honestly, want to, figure out a way to scare the hell out of people and give, and it's amazing how, you just look at the numbers. I mean, I track productivity growth in both the U.S. and global economy growth, specifically growth this century, and you overlay that with growth in IT spending, and productivity growth looks like this, and growth in spending looks like this. And why no one sees that as a crisis? We're throwing good money after bad money all the time. Why is that acceptable? Why do we why do we allow particularly public entities in this country to be literally ripped off by vendors? We have, there's a city up in Alaska that has spent, a city of a couple 100,000 that has spent tens of millions of dollars trying to implement an ERP system, and they failed. They still don't have it. I mean, I can't imagine what the finances are of that city. It must be a disaster up there.
Yes. And I do not accept the perspective that I get betrayed and cheated day by day by larger enterprises, and they see it as a sportive exercise to betray and to cheat and to misbehave. It is that I do not accept, for instance, this is why we do have not only an association of taxpayers in Germany, which is getting quite radical from time to time, but we have also an institution which is blaming excessive misspend of tax money. Yeah. And they have a book about this, and it's not getting thinner, trust me. And it is ridiculous if you look at one of your fighter planes, the F-34 or 35, which is costing now billions after development and is not performing as it's promised. And there is a Eurofighter, which is the same shit coming from Europe, such as half the time they promised it's only in the air. Yeah, this is something, if we go away from defense material, but we go for the useful, peaceful stuff, that I want to have my software to do its work properly. And I'm honestly with those vendors and those implementation organizations which deliver value for money, which have not only vapor marketing looking honest and shiny, but they deliver an honest job. This is what I want, and this is what I fight for, and this is what we stand for as the CRM evangelists. Amen.
Oh, yes.
Amen. So
I'll drink to that.
Save the taxpayers' money or what?
Yeah, I mean, here in the United States, don't get me started on public sector. That's the worst. That's where the worst things happen. Of course, it's a place in the United States where we get to see it because because these are public records. So actually, I've done a lot of analysis based on looking at the public institutions, because they're really getting screwed. But I think, I really, I think this is a crisis that needs a crusade. I think the problem with crusades is, historically they tend to kill as many innocents as they do anyone else. That's problematic. But I think this has been going on way too long. It's been going on my whole career, all of our careers. It's time to stop it.
It's difficult. I mean, we need to rage against the machine, but we are the machine. Tom Morello would kill us.
We're not. We're innocent. The four of us. We're not the machine. We are. The machine is what. We're inside, but I think we can. We can affect change. I mean, this is what I think we all do, right? I think the reason we're all sitting here talking about it is because we're not. We're not trying to be part of that problem. We're trying to be part of that solution. And I think if the customer, and so this, I know, again, I know you all well enough. We're all saying the right things to the customers. We need, we need to get our voices amplified. We need to find our allies in the customers' bases, in the boutique firms, in the vendor community, and really promote these ideas. Because I think their time is long past due. And it's, like I said, I would love to finish my career having fixed some of this. I think that would be the best coda to everything I've done.
One of my crazy ideas is the one about empathic CRM. And this is very much what is behind it, that it's not only in a pandemic situation, but we need to have a different mindset, a different attitude in being more at benefit for those which pay us, and do it in a fair way with more empathy for the employees and for the customers. And with that spirit, we drive things forward, which comes to the point of prediction of the next year. What is in your drawers? What is in your mind? What's happening next year, Josh?
Well, I do believe that next year is the year where we're going to start seeing a lot of offerings that are going to try to break down the silos. They're not going to use those words exactly, but I think there is going to be more and more recognition that what customers need are end-to-end experiences that independent of what's happening in the back end, and whether that's a customer data platform in the back end and that's helping that happen, whether that's duct tape and wire, whether that's MuleSoft, whether that's whatever it is. At the end of the day, I think next year we're going to start seeing more attention paid to what does the customer's experience need to be across these silos, and then try to fix it. I think that's a good first step. How we solve that is going to be problematic, but I predict we're going to see more of that in 2022.
What else?
What else? That was a big one. I thought it was pretty good.
That was a great one, but I'd love to get more.
Yeah. Well, I think.
Before you make the man work too hard, bear in mind we did just cross the 1 hour mark.
Yeah.
So let us be fair and at least ask, do you have time to stick around for a few more minutes?
Yeah, I got a couple of minutes. No problem.
All right.
My next big appointment is lunch.
Yeah, I heard that.
I think I'm looking at we talked in the break beginning in the green room a little bit about industry clouds. I think that's really part of what part of the same phenomenon is that we're going to really, and maybe that's really what's the real trend is a more persona role-based view of what the enterprise user needs to do. Okay, and if you're so that means to get that software in the hands of that practitioner in that particular segment of the industry, in that particular company, and get them more productive, fix that productivity problem. So we're seeing industry clouds. It's a nice buzz term, but at the end of the day, this is what we need to do. We need to evolve enterprise software to be more specific to the task at hand. I think that's an exciting opportunity. There's some really, interesting. Some of it's going to be just, if you're living in the hello, it's Ralph's getting that's his delivery. That's his special, Christmas Gluck delivery coming. I think we're gonna we have an opportunity to really say there is going to be a change in what it takes. What are we delivering to customers? And it's going to have a more what is your job? What is your role? Here's the software you need. I'd like to think that's possible. Maybe I'm dreaming. I don't know.
Well, building it on a common data platform background, all using the same information, there's at least hope.
You are redefining the term CDP to common data platform.
Wow.
That's what it should be.
You're welcome.
Right. Check the box.
You'll become famous.
Right. I've seen that. I mean, that's been the story all along. Is what do you want to call it? Is it a data? It's not a data warehouse. That's an analytical tool. But there are lots of there's lots of operational data stores and other methods for organizing data. I mean, it doesn't happen easily, and unfortunately, we're going to have a world in which there are multiple customer common data platforms, and then we're going to have to organize them to work together, and it's going to it will never end in that sense. But it has to. I think it has to do simultaneously. You really have to start organizing the data in a way that makes it accessible, and that there is whether there's structurally a single version of the truth, there has to be one version of one truth accessible, and then you have to change the experiences to go with it. Get the right data, fix the experience on the on the end user side. I think those are that would go a long way. I think industry clouds are going to do a lot to do with that. I think I'm very interested in what SAP in particular is doing with the business network strategy. I think creating many-to-many networks is a way in which you can streamline both these problems of data and experience. I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch.
Extend the idea of an industry solution to provide the one system for the whole industry. An industry backbone, not a corporation backbone. That's right. A bold one.
It's a big one. But there's a lot of economies of scale in doing that. Tremendous. And you look at the problems we're all having in supply chain and logistics, and think, well, what if there was really a many-to-many network that you could, you could really solve a lot of problems if you had that kind of visibility.
And they are probably one of three who currently could pull that one off. The other ones,
it's not.
In my eyes, the other ones being Oracle and Amazon, actually.
Yeah, I think Amazon personally, I think that they are such a threat in so many industries now because there's nothing they won't try to do. That I mean, they're already losing. I certainly have customers who are, thinking about, why would I pay money? Why would I keep Amazon profitable by paying money to AWS so that the unprofitable part of the business can come after me? That's no, thank you.
Or from a vendor perspective, even worse, subsidize the business that eats up my core business.
Right.
It's like,
exactly.
I remember SAP ditching Oracle databases end of last century.
Right.
I see that
Should
moment
happen
coming
again.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
If they get too strong by buying stuff which is predictably useful or not useful, such as I have 28 billions of dollars in my piggy bank and I don't know where to buy and what to buy, so I buy Slack or I buy Cerner. What for? The one has an idea. Okay, Thomas. The one has an idea that cooperation is a driver, but
for
is
Slack,
for Slack, but is buying a dedicated sector, let's say Diamond, from their own perspective, where only the shareholders made money. And if Oracle is managing, by all the stupidity they deliver on some other ends, is managing that bait, what that fish took in from that fishing rod or from that angler. So that fisherman was very smart. It made the bait so attractive that they consumed it for their $28 billion. But I asked myself, I know since 2007, when I was in an SAP event, when Siemens Healthcare was still its own company and not bought by Cerner, that they did a lot of cool stuff, but that this is not the whole industry. And now one has to follow. Is that a door opener for Oracle to go not only into some parts of banking, but also in healthcare? Or can it break their neck?
It won't. It won't. Yeah. Both are highly profitable, but that's a discussion for probably another day.
That's a long one, yeah.
The industry cloud is an exciting one. We probably should schedule one. When is your next availability, Josh?
After the new year, let's do it. Because that is, that follows, I think, some of this talk we're having right now is okay. It doesn't necessarily solve the silo problem, but let's put it this way: if I had to live in a silo, I'd want that to be one specific to my industry. I could actually live there for a long time and be successful.
Yeah.
And that's,
which makes it perfect closing words, I guess.
There you go. All right.
Thanks for being there, Josh. We are going backstage in a second, so that does mean no need to pull the plug on your end.
I'll stick around, but it was an honor and a pleasure, seriously, to spend the hour with the three of you.
Same for us.
Good to see your faces, as always. We all miss the in-person opportunities, which we're probably going to continue to miss for a while. Yeah. But it's great to be able to do this virtually. Thanks.
We are all you are probably best suited to see some guys because they're in this bloody Bay Area. This is where all the pundits are.
We're actually in really good shape here. I shouldn't say that.
Okay.
Yeah, we wish our audience fantastic holidays.
Good health.
Greetings, and please, please, please be with us also on the 28th, and be with us healthy, stay happy, and have fantastic Christmas days. And it's always good to see you back again, and stay tuned.
Thank you.
Shameless plug. Next week it will be about CX, the impact of supply chain to CX. Stay tuned.
Oh, that sounds good. All right.